Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, January 1st. This is day 87 since October 7th. A number of things to give updates about. I had mentioned that South Africa had petitioned the Court of Justice at The Hague. Israel's security establishment and the state prosecutor's office are concerned that the International Court of Justice at The Hague will charge Israel with genocide in Gaza. South Africa's petition happened over the weekend, and a senior legal expert warned that the Israeli Defense Forces top brass that there's a real possibility that the court will issue an injunction calling on Israel to halt its fire, noting that Israel is bound by the court's proceedings and what they rule. I wanted to take just a minute, and I found online a woman named Hadir Maher explained this. The ICJ is not the same as the ICC. So the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan visited Israel on October 29th. That is the International Court of Justice. And so she had a few explanations that I thought might be helpful. The International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It settles legal disputes between states, and it gives advisory opinions on legal questions referred to the UN and its specialized agencies. The ICJ does not have jurisdiction over individuals, and its primary focus is on disputes between states. On the other hand, the International Criminal Court is a permanent international tribunal that has jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. The ICC operates independently of the United Nations. South Africa has taken a significant and principled step by initiating legal action against Israel at the ICJ, citing the Genocide Convention and seeking interim measures. And the question now arises as to whether the ICC will change its stance in response to these developments. So the urgency is to prevent genocide and to save civilians in Gaza. Some other updates, these come from Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper. I had mentioned yesterday that Israel is withdrawing some of their forces from Gaza. This is for a couple of reasons. It's to shift to more targeted operations, and it's also partially returning some Israeli reservists to civilian life. We also have heard that the war certainly will continue in Gaza, but Israel mentioned that some of the troops that are being withdrawn is possibly to prepare for a second front in North Israel against Hezbollah on the south border of Lebanon. We do also know, I've been talking about the health concerns in Gaza. Thousands of doses of vaccines against childhood diseases, including polio and measles, are being delivered to Gaza to help the growing health emergency there. And a Hamas delegation is in Cairo examining Egypt's proposal for a ceasefire. We've been talking about that three-part proposal that would include the potential for hostage release in exchange for prisoners. So that conversation is still continuing. The Israeli Defense Forces presented communities that were living between 4 and 7 kilometers from the Gaza Strip on October 7th, and thereafter, those communities were evacuated with a plan allowing residents to return to their homes. And so that conversation has been happening with the Israeli Defense Forces in Israel. Last night, Sunday night, the Hezbollah brigades, a pro-Iranian militia that are operating in Iraq, announced that it attacked the southern Israeli city of Eilat in response to what's been happening in Gaza. There were no sirens prior to that attack, which was very concerning to the community living there. The Israeli Defense Forces also reported that 30 soldiers have been killed in accidents or friendly fire incidents since the ground operation in Gaza began. Previously, the IDF had reported that approximately 20% of the deaths of Israeli soldiers have been by friendly fire. We do also know that there were sirens going off in northern Israel throughout Monday because an Israeli aircraft had struck a Hezbollah squad on Monday morning. So those escalations at the border are continuing. And the USS Gerald Ford, which is an aircraft that has been in the Mediterranean Sea since just after October 7th. The reason the USS Ford was sent there was to act as deterrence against Hezbollah for regional escalation, that continues to be present in the Mediterranean. In the West Bank, Israel confiscated weapons and arrested 10 Palestinians on Monday, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. And there continue to be escalations with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The UK is considering airstrikes after the US said that its Navy had sunk 3 boats over the weekend. The UK will not hesitate to take direct action to prevent more attacks. And an Iranian warship passed through the Bab al-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea. The country's semi-official news agency Tasnim announced on Monday. So those are some of the updates. I have not heard from my contact in Gaza since Wednesday of last week. I know he had mentioned on Wednesday that communities in Han Yunis are being asked to relocate in Gaza. So there continues to be bombing in Gaza, the ground incursion, even while troops are being taken out, that still continues. There are hostilities there. We know that more than 100 hostages remain. As it is the new year, soon Congress will be back in session. Our work on calling on the US government to support a ceasefire, calling on President Biden to say this war must come to an end. I reported just a couple of days ago that, again, Secretary Blinken and Biden went around Congress to send more weapons to Israel. And so the only answer to this conflict is an end to violence, for all sides to lay down their arms. So call for a ceasefire. There'll be more opportunities and points of engagement. We'll have our Wednesday prayer this week, our Thursday briefing. This is a new year. May we pray for peace and may it come quickly in 2024.